me some ganja. Hello, everybody. This is Sunday Jamz with Joe, Shak, and Sam, and today we are doing a review of Paramore's new album, After Laughter. So this is Paramore. They were a sensation in our teenage years amongst the females of our generation. They were originally a pop-punk group who made pop-punk music, and Hayley Williams was the kind of every girl wanted to be her, every boy wanted to be with her type shit of like the emo scene of like the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
But then after like their first three albums, there was a big fallout between Hayley Williams and the other core members, which were two brothers. I don't know their names.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the brothers left and Hayley Williams decided that she was going to continue on the band. She got some new guys in, and then Paramore dropped, which was a clear change of sound. Now After Laughter, which is an even bigger change of sound to Paramore and to the early pop-punk stuff. So, I mean, it's definitely like a band that's sonically evolving. It's in a process of evolution.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and here we are at 2017 with Paramore, After Laughter. So I guess the obvious thing about this album to kind of start on is the fact that there's a very obvious 80s vibe. It's quite a throwback album. Again, you know, after we reviewed the Harry Styles album, which is a very throwback album. This
New
also
wave synth pop.
Yeah, it's a throwback to those things, but also it's a little bit more organic, I suppose, because of the amount of instrumentation that is kind of the bulk of the album. It's not just synth led, you know, like Depeche Mode type stuff. You know, it's very. It's still very instrumental in a sense, but there is a very 80s vibe here, and the percussion and the bass have a really funky feel throughout. It's very like rhythmic throughout the whole album. I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like a lot of this album was very danceable.
Right. Yeah. Very danceable. Yeah.
But I don't know if that's a good thing personally.
In what sense?
Like, I kind of wish it was more synth based and like. Because a lot of it still feels like pop punk, but like garnished with some like interesting synth sounds.
Right. I'm not sure if I feel the punk edge anymore. Or
maybe not pop punk, but like this like playful. You know, like it still sounds like old Paramore kind of in some ways, just more playful and friendly.
Right.
I get slight vibes. There's a couple like the song I got the most vibes of old Paramore was Fake Happy, especially. I mean, lyrically, especially, it sounded like the kind of thing that like a teenager would write.
A lot of this does,
but also just the way the chorus was put together, like it felt a lot louder, a lot more chord heavy than the rest of the album, and that kind of threw back to the old sound, which was a lot more of just a thick sound, if you know what I mean.
It was the most anthemic track on the album, I think. Perhaps one of the more cliche tracks, you know.
The lyrics made me cringe.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed.
Or whatever.
It's guaranteed to make teenage girls be like, "Oh my god, like so true." She like understands me.
Yeah, it still has that. But then in another sense, like I felt like there was also just kind of an innocence to the lyric writing as well.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me so much because there were more nuanced explorations on this album of the kind of melancholic feelings that Hayley is describing throughout the album.
I think the one thing that stands out the most to me about this album is the amount of attention to detail all over the album. Like there's so much nuance everywhere. Like there's so many little bits of instruments and little blemishes all over the place, and I feel like it's just been like incredibly produced, this album.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think they've really focused lots on just little sounds like in.
Before we move on from Fake Happy though, you said that it reminds you of old Paramore. It actually reminded me of the stuff we heard from their last album on the self-titled, especially the intro. Reminded me of the kind of like interludes that you got with the ukuleles.
Right, okay.
With that kind of weird effect on the vocal as well. And I thought the synths and bass in the pre-chorus of this track were really funky.
Yeah, there's a funky bass all over it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one of my favourite parts of the album.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the parts where it actually does have like some kind of synth, but like an interesting synth though, not just like a poppy sounding synth, you know, like more like an 80s futuristic sounding synth.
Yeah.
That's more of the stuff I wish they would have doubled down on.
I don't know. I think the synths had a really nice tone on the album. Like it had this kind of tangy, like tropically tone on the album. I felt like it made for a good mix with the instruments on the song.
There is that upbeat like Caribbean island tropical Crash Bandicoot vibe.
Yeah, but it's not in the same way of just like, you know, like all this tropical house stuff that keeps coming out.
No.
It's like, I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot more. It feels like almost like real keys, real keyboard vibes. Again, it's more of there is definitely like the 80s vibe in a lot of the keyboard playing, I thought. For example, like the way it's Fake Happy starts as like almost
starts
like
sounding like a recording.
Yeah, it starts and it's just like her and a guitar, but then as it comes in you hear all these sounds, and the sounds kind of build as it goes through, and there's just a lot of moments when the sound builds, like in Pool as well. I think that's another one that has a lot of detail in the production.
Yeah.
It has like these kind of watery keys, but it also has this like huge kind of washing electronic pulse that goes through the...
Wait, are you sure it's Pool you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Because Pool at the beginning, you know, it's got like this like wind chimes sound kind of thing. It sounds exactly like Animal Collective, I Think I Can.
I really liked the warped kind of jingle.
It
thing
sounds
that starts
exactly like it.
I mean, the intro of both those songs.
The intro of Pool, then, well, I don't know.
And like loads of... oh my god, it sounds just like it. If you stick on like the first 15 seconds of Pool, and then you go listen to I Think I Can, it sounds like the same song.
But Pool personally was one of the highlights of the album for me. It had my favourite chorus on the album, for sure.
Yeah, Pool was definitely one of my highlights because I felt like there was loads of different effects and lots of different, like I said, there were the keys, there was the big pulsing electronic that went through it. There was just lots of detail. There's so much little fine details. Every time I re-listened, I'd hear new things that had been like worked into the back of the production.
But something I couldn't help thinking, I appreciate all of the little things that come in, but like I feel like at the core of each song, there is that same bouncy beat.
Right.
You know, like,
I think I know what you're getting at, yeah.
I felt they kept coming back to that same formula of like this kind of just like playful bouncy beat with like these indie guitars that sound like the Strokes. And like I kind of wish they would have like tried something really different, because like structurally the songs all seem really similar except for like No Friend.
I suppose so. I think they all have like a pop structure at the core for sure.
Yeah, like I just kind of wish.
And choruses.
And you know, like the last song, Tell Me How, and it starts with a piano and shit.
Yeah.
I wish it would have stayed like that instead of going back into this the same like thumping beat that's on like every track.
Like I have here that I thought Hayley's vocals on Tell Me How were actually really, really good, but unfortunately, like the instrumentation that comes in later just completely washes away all of the emotional weight that this track could have had. It just feels a bit overblown.
I can see what you mean by overblown, but I wouldn't go as far to say it washes away all the emotion. Like I thought it worked better as a ballady song than 26 did.
No, I much prefer 26.
Really? I prefer Tell Me How. I thought the fact that the piano was used was a very clear variation from the kind of what had been, because there was no like piano in any of the other songs or anything like that.
I thought it was refreshing, but I felt like it came too late.
I didn't find the album that samey at all, really. Like I found like there was a couple songs where like I think songs like Grudges and Idol Worship were both really forgettable because they felt like the baseline songs of the album, in a sense, in that it felt like they were just like I understand what you mean. There is a recurring sound on the album, and I felt like those two songs kind of were just that sound and didn't really go past that. But I thought a lot of the other songs just had other things, like some of the songs like Told You So when she does that throw me into the fire, throw me and pull me out again
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And
Told You So is one of my favourites on the album.
it's definitely one of mine as well. And there's just bits where she shows like kind of versatility in her vocal delivery, because like I'm not really used to her having much versatility in her vocal delivery in like some of her older stuff, but I felt like she does try to just deliver things a little differently. Like in Rose Colored Boy as well, with that Leave Me Here a Little Bit Longer, I Think I Want to Stay in the Car, that little bridge before the final chorus as well. She plays about with the way she puts the line forward, and I think that versatility in her vocals, and also just the variation between songs of just the little, like I say, the details that kind of just the little details that are just spread around the album. That's what kind of kept it feeling fresh for me going through. Stopped it from being stale, was just because I felt like it was such a detailed album in the instrumentation that they'd done.
I know what you mean. Like on Caught in the Middle, that has some of my favourite moments, because although I'm not huge on the chorus and like the lyrics or anything, the bridges actually like explore something that like the rest of the album doesn't, or like the meat of the album doesn't, in that it actually like comes through with like these like high gain guitars and like this synth. I know something I wanted more of.
Caught in the Middle is definitely a favourite of mine as well, and I actually really like the chorus. But I don't know, I felt like that kind of thing was something that I heard a lot of on the album. That's what I felt like anyway. Like I felt like there was a lot of like lots of guitar layering.
I didn't feel like there was enough. Yeah, the guitar layering is cool, but I mean like the actual synth and stuff. Like whenever there was like an instrumental part, it wasn't made of the synth. It was made of this guitar and playful beat, and just sprinkled with like the odd synth.
Yeah.
I wanted something else to take over, like the piano in Tell Me How. I wanted that to be the core, but eventually it just got erased by the beat.
Right. Well, I think like I liked the fact that the instruments stayed at the core, because I thought the playing was really good, and I thought that, and also I mean, they're just not a synth group, so it's not like what I expected of them.
I know.
The fact that because they're playing with their sound as Paramore. I mean, they're not just going to completely abandon everything they've done. And I feel like the way they've progressed their sound, they haven't, like you said, they haven't like turned it on its head, but the way they've taken their sound somewhere else, we're still kind of keeping the heart of it. But I mean, if you put on like Riot, the album, like nothing on there sounds anything like stuff on here, really. Like instrumentally even, just because it doesn't have any kind of danceable groove or anything. It's very much pop punk. It's very much like punky, but poppy, as the genre tag
for
will
little
suggest.
girls.
Yeah. So like, I didn't really want that or expect that, the whole like for the synth to take the lead.
I know, yeah. I couldn't realistically expect them to do something really arty and like really, really, really out there.
Yeah, I just think like the band is still a band in a sense. They're still like a live band. They're still instruments at the core of the band.
Yeah, and they're still like appealing to the same fans, even though they are trying something really new.
What about you, Sam? How do you feel about that?
I understand what Joe's saying in the repetition of like this kind of new wavy, very guitar, drums, bass focused instrumentation, when they're obviously experimenting with this kind of tropical sound as well as synths and everything else. It gets a bit repetitive and tired towards the end of the album. Like, I wish that the album ended at like Caught in the Middle, personally.
See, I really wouldn't want that, because I think No Friend was one of the best songs.
I thought it was the worst song on the album.
And I think it was insanely experimental for them as well.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I can't believe Paramore are making this song.
It's definitely a highlight.
It's not even a Paramore song. If you actually look into the context of what it is.
And it's by the guy from Me Without You, the vocals.
Something like that. They can't even take credit for that, unfortunately.
What do you mean it's not their song?
So, No Friend, it features this spoken word thing from Me Without You. I don't know how much, in terms of credit, the Paramore could really take for this, because
it sounds like the whole instrumental is still there.
Yeah, and just the idea of putting a piece of spoken word onto this instrumental is the thing that really was like, oh, that's so strange that they've done that.
Yeah.
Just like the decision, the musical decision to do that.
The musical decision and the decision to like completely make it void of any like conventional structure.
Right, yeah.
It's not even like the first time that they've done something similar to this. they did something similar on their self-titled album. It was the outro to... What's the longest song on the album? Yeah, so on the end of the album Future, it just kind of turns into this like wall of noise. And that was far more effective than what they achieved here. Here it just felt like an extremely long interlude track, which I felt could have just been done away with.
I haven't heard that.
I have heard that, and I don't think I agree. Also, it's the very end of the album. So that's a different thing than putting it not at the end of the album.
That's a fade out, essentially.
Yeah, it's essentially like, you know, the closing statement of the album. It's not like just a song in the album.
Well, I feel like that works better, to be honest, than just putting it like, this is the penultimate track of the album, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get Tell Me How, which is meant to be like the closing ballad of the album. I think I would have just much preferred if No Friend was removed altogether, and Tell Me How just was there.
I disagree.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. And I don't think the bit at the end of Future is more transgressive or more experimental than this either. Because I'm
not arguing whether it's more experimental. It's certainly in the same vein in that they tried to play with similar sounds. And I felt like it was more effective on that self-titled album.
I guess I know what you mean when you say it's in the same vein, but no, I definitely preferred it here. I also really love the guitar riff on No Friend. It's kind of dark, like it lurks in like the low registers for the
I've
thing.
got that it almost sounds post-rocky in some parts.
Yeah.
It falls out of that, like, just going for a catchy guitar melody and like into actually being like, it's not just following a rhythm anymore, like he's actually just, it becomes its own kind of composition beyond the structure of a typical pop rock song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where I can kind of understand the comparison with the End of Future, because the End of Future has a kind of post-rocky vibe to it as well. But yeah, no, I really like it. It was definitely a highlight for me.
I kind of like how you can't really hear him that well.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
that's what I really did not like.
It creates like a interest.
It's ominous.
It sounds almost like it's like a radio or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like certain bits of the lyrics that you actually heard didn't sound actually that great. He's like, "You're no friend of mine." Like, you're not my friend. It just all sounds a little bit just like juvenile. But I appreciated the atmosphere. I definitely wasn't expecting it.
I would have cut off a couple songs, but they wouldn't have been at the end. Like, I just didn't really like. There were just some songs that bored me. Like, Grudges really bored me. Like, after
Grudges was the track that reminded me most of like old school Paramore.
Really?
Yeah, and it's one of the weaker tracks on the album for me.
Yeah, same for sure.
But
although it does have some very new wavy sounds in the background.
Yeah, I've got written down like
sounds.
Like certain parts in the verses, like it has like this buzzing like 80s hum. Like this synth that like kind of waves in and out.
Yeah. I think it's the most new wave sounding synth on the album, even though it's only a subtle bit in the back.
I love that, but I don't have much else to say for like the rest of the song.
Yeah, the rest of the song's very forgettable, I felt.
I think for like Paramore fans that are like psyched at the idea of the guy Zach Farrow coming back into the band and this song talking about that and them like throwing away their grudges, I think they'll get a kick out of it. But otherwise, it's kind of just okay, really.
I don't know how much I still don't know how much I like Hard Times as an opener. I still don't know how much I like Hard Times at all, to be honest.
It's a highlight for me.
I don't think it's a highlight for me. It's probably like a mid-light for me.
Same.
It's funny because usually I feel like I've noticed a trend lately where people always put really strong songs as like the first song, and you can understand why. But for this, I don't know, this didn't feel like a strong song. It felt like one of the least of that like nuance, at least of that all that texture that they put in by adding in the little details. Like, I wouldn't have guessed when I listened to Hard Times the amount of effort that went into the other songs, because it doesn't sound an equivalent amount of effort almost went into this song. Right. In terms of the, like I said, the little instrumental kind of colorings that kind of flesh out a lot of the other songs.
I feel like it's as strong as pretty much every other good track on this album. Like the only track that really kind of elevates itself above all the others is Pool for me, and then like there's a mix of good to decent tracks with the exception of No Friend for me.
Pool is good. I'd say one of my weaknesses of the album overall is that I'm not sure how much I like in general the choruses. Like, I feel like some of the choruses are kind of Like, for example, the chorus on Forgiveness. I don't know, it shoots for a very like clean, very bright, and quite vintage thing, but it's almost too much of that. And it feels like they're not really putting a spin on it in the choruses. It feels like a lot of the detail and a lot of the ideas are all in the verses.
Right, I think I can see what you mean. On Forgiveness, anyway, I really liked Hayley's vocal performance in the chorus, actually, regardless of how kind of much it emulates this kind of clean 80s sound. I particularly like the contrast with the kind of more fragile vocal as well that comes in.
The thing I really like in Forgiveness as well is the keys here. Again, it's a lot of the keys, a lot of the electronic things. Like the keys here add this whole other like tonal like level to the song.
I think the keys for me shined most on Told You So.
Told You So, yeah. Told You So is it's definitely a highlight for me. Yeah, sure.
It's my number one track, I think. On the album. I like the pitch shifted vocals at the end of each line. I like the jumpy guitars. Like the guitars all over the album remind me a lot of the Strokes. Especially like right at the beginning of the album on Hard Times. There's like these slow guitar strums like sounds exactly like the Strokes.
Yeah, I think I know.
Later albums like First Impressions of Earth and the one after it, Angles, guitars on that, it's exactly like this. And there's a song on Angles called Machu Picchu, and it even has these like
that was a fairly
tropical...
big hit, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was like one of the lead singles off that album. Bare tropical vibes, just like this as well. So I feel like it's quite a comparable. It might have been a reference point for this album.
The bridge here on "Told You So" was actually my favorite bridge on the entire album. It's the one that goes, "Throw me into the fire, throw me and pull me out."
Yeah.
That's really well executed.
Very beat heavy vocal. Not focused on melody, more focused on the syllables and the way the words kind of bounce off one another.
Yeah. Hayley's performance overall is just good. Like, she's clearly just a really good front man / front woman. Like, I don't know, just a good lead for the band. Like, she's clearly talented, and she's just a likable face for the band.
And I think not necessarily what she's writing about, but the way that she's delivering it and the way that she's experimenting, she's clearly grown as a songwriter and vocalist. You know, it's quite revealing in some songs, actually, how much, like, the kind of trauma of all these band changes or whatever has had an effect on her. And thankfully, it's been a case that Paramore have evolved from it. You know, I went back and listened to Crush, 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 which I liked a lot back in the day.
I still love that song.
Yeah, it's still a good song, but compared to how they're playing on this album, they've certainly like become stronger songwriters.
It's more versatile songwriting for sure. Crush, 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 and those kind of songs aim for a lot more simplicity. I don't think this album is simple at all. Like I think there's a lot of stuff going on this album.
I still feel like a lot of the lyrics are kind of cringy and like. I was like, I just couldn't help but feel like this album is not made to appeal to me.
See, luckily for me, like, lyrics are kind of just like a bonus for me.
Man, it
like,
put me off a lot.
If lyrics are sick, then it's like a bonus. But if lyrics are like average to bad, if the music's good, I'm usually not bothered that much by it. Okay. Like the lyrics here, like I wasn't a big fan of the lyrics anyway here, but it doesn't like really change my opinions on any of the songs. The fact that I didn't really like the lyrics.
It like kills me, like, you know, like listening to new Muse songs. The lyrics, just like the lack of nuance.
But I see that. I feel like new Muse is especially bad, and that's what
it is. It is.
Here it's just like, oh, these are just
it's kind of
cliche.
Just run the course, isn't it?
Yeah, these are just corny, basically.
Yeah, and it's just like
which I can kind of pass, you know, because I don't really tune into the lyrics that heavily. I was watching an interview with One Tricks Point Never, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, one of the reasons why electronic music gravitated to him so much was because he was always way more fascinated with the melodies and the tones of everything rather than the word content. And I've always been exactly the same. Like, whenever I listen to music, lyrics are the last thing that like hits my brain. And once I have to listen to I have to listen to like an album like a fair few times before the lyrics start really bothering me, in a sense, in a good or a bad way. So like for me, like it never really is a deal breaker unless they're like god terrible lyrics.
Right.
Like, they have to be really bad for it to be like a deal breaker, or something that would like alter a score. They have to be really bad.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I just appreciate some subtlety
mm,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of just like, I know something that sounds a little bit poetic. Something that has a little bit of imagination behind it. That's something that I can actually think about.
to refer back to your point about the album sounding kind of samey, how did you feel about when 26 rolled in?
I didn't really like 26, but obviously it's a big difference.
Mhm.
I do appreciate contextually as like a lull in the track listing. It gets a bit Disney.
Right.
It gets really Disney towards the end.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like there's the strings and the flute that
Yeah.
comes in at the end.
Super clean strings. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, like is Mickey Mouse about to pop out my screen or something? Like super Disney. But to be fair, like I think it has a lot of texture, a lot of detail, like the violins and the keys and the way they trace the guitars.
Mhm.
How like a note is filled out by it being repeated by multiple different instruments, giving you like multiple dimensions on the sound. The overall strengths that this album has for me is still seen on 26.
Mhm.
It's just, I don't know, I don't even know why I call it a low light. I guess it just, I like the vibe. I like the overall vibe of this album, and it didn't have that vibe, so maybe I'm just like towards
Alright.
it, I guess.
Well, how about you, Joe?
Fair enough. I appreciate the occasional slow moment, especially on an album with so many like samey beats.
Upbeat, yeah.
And while I appreciate the bringing in of additional instrumentation, like the strings, like just like the piano on the last track, they sound good, but I don't feel like, whether it's just me or whether it's actually like it can't be everyone. Like someone must enjoy them, but like I don't feel like they accomplish with me what I feel they want to achieve.
Right.
You know, I feel like they're bringing them in to like really create this like inspiring emotional ballad, like to really kind of create this epic emotional
Right. Yeah, I think I agree.
build.
I think the thing, the reason why this is a low light, echoing what Joe says, is because it's not, doesn't hit you enough in the feels, basically. Like it's not sad enough in the sense, I don't know, that it doesn't really succeed in kind of garnering that emotional content from me. So yeah, I think that is a good way of putting it.
I don't think it really achieves what it set out to do.
It was fine
That's the
for
point.
me personally.
Fine isn't good enough, Sam.
Yeah, like when you talk about it not achieving what it set out to do.
In us, like we didn't get the amount,
like
we didn't get the emotion that they clearly are trying to.
It certainly
forward.
it certainly didn't make me like blob or anything like that. But I feel like this is one of the more revealing tracks on the album, because we've kind of hit on that the entire album is actually melancholic. Like, despite all these upbeat beats and vibes and shit, if you actually look to the lyrics or whatever,
oh yeah,
they're actually all talking about like
insecurity and stuff like
insecurities
that.
and shit. Kind of in a pop
super
punk vibe.
passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on this album in particular, I feel like Hayley kind of laid it out that it's like, yeah, actually, I'm not feeling great, and you know, the past couple of years have been a bit rough, especially with making music. And apparently, like, I always look at the Genius page after listening to a track just to see if there's anything that I missed in terms of context. And apparently this is meant to be like Hayley speaking to her younger self.
Okay.
And
that's what it's called. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and trying to say, like, you know, when you were younger and you had ideals and, you know, you had hope or whatever, that was great. Don't let go of it, because, you know, it's pretty fleeting. It will leave you when you're older. And,
you know, her growing up is fucked up because she, like, got famous at 16. So, like, anyone who gets famous young has a fucked up, like, progression through life, because that's just not a normal way to go through, like, your younger years.
I would argue this might be their most, like, kind of mature album.
Lyrically?
In terms of just the band as a whole and the music as a whole.
Musically, absolutely. Their most mature album. Absolutely.
Like, there was some baby steps and teething on the self-titled, and we saw hints of that possibly on Brand New Eyes. But I feel like this is where it's kind of fully realized, or at least realized the best.
Yeah. They've all got slightly more. Paramore, their self-titled is a good kind of bridge from their pop punk to this kind of new thing. And it has its own kind of things as well. Like, this isn't just an evolution of the sound on the self-titled. Like, the self-titled does have its own stuff going on. But yeah, musically mature. Like, yeah. Because like the main general point that I want to drive home about this album, the main positive anyway, is that the production is just stellar.
Absolutely,
like, I think the production is amazing, and I think they really spent a lot of time in the studio crafting this, because it's like I hear so much little stuff, and I hear more and more things every time I listen. It just feels like there's lots of detail here, and I really appreciate the kind of depth of detail in these songs, especially relative to them. You know, I'm not saying it's as detailed as fucking, I don't know, King Crimson or something. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's very detailed. It's just very detailed. There's a lot of nuance here, you know.
It's definitely something I can appreciate.
So highlights, Told You So for sure. Caught in the Middle, really love the chorus, really offbeat and cool. And Pool. They're my three biggest highlights. I also like Forgiveness, and I also like Fake Happy, kind of. So they're my highlights. Mainly the ones I said first, though. Mainly Caught in the Middle, Told You So, and Pool. Oh, and No Friend.
You're not going to drop No Friend?
No Friend, yeah. They're my big four highlights. Pool, No Friend, Told You So, Caught in the Middle. Lowlights, I'd say Grudges, Idol Worship. 26 is kind of in limbo between low light and mid light, but mainly Grudges and Idol Worship. And then everything else is kind of just middle, hard times. We didn't talk about Rose Colored Boy that much, but I'm kind of indifferent towards it. It's very, little note about Rose Colored Boy, I found it very like Jackson's-esque. Like, it feels really like pseudo-optimistic 80s cheese. I really got that vibe, like what the Jacksons and shit used to do. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's it for me.
Right, so highlights. Told You So is probably my number one song on the album. Then Caught in the Middle. I sound like I'm just copying Shak, but these were written down before we even discussed this. So Caught in the Middle, No Friend. Yeah, no, I don't think I can call anything else a highlight. Pool. I like the intro to Pool. That wind chimey Animal Collective sound. It's just really nice. And it's really like, it's something really arty, especially to find on a Paramore album. I wasn't expecting that. Lowlights, probably Rose Colored Boy, because the lyrics are just so fucking cringy, man. The lyrics killed so many songs on this album for me. They didn't kill them dead, but like they injured them. It's this because it's so obviously not made for me. What else is a lowlight? Grudges, like, even though there are that humming 80s synth sound that's really nice, like that we talked about earlier, the rest of the song is kind of forgettable and dead. I feel like picking Tell Me How, just because it started so enjoyable and just completely binned itself.
It's a good way of describing it.
It dunked itself hard.
Swished
I
itself.
didn't feel that, but fair enough.
Because it was just like, man, like, if you're gonna, like, it's the end song, like, you're going for a dramatic piano sad ender. Go for a sad dramatic piano ender, man.
But I feel like it's important to still have the character of the album still there.
I guess, but it's like,
that's what I liked about it.
When the beat started coming in again, it was like, man, don't you fucking dare.
I didn't feel that way, but fair enough.
I don't feel as strongly about it, but I agree.
It probably sounds stronger than it is. I don't actually feel that strongly about like anything on this album. Like, as an album, I'm kind of indifferent to it. But
right,
like, when discussing the track and like what I wanted and what I got, that's how I feel. I feel like I can't call Fake Happy a highlight or a low light, but like the verses, I feel like they were just like a device. Like they just existed for her to spout the lyrics. Like, I don't feel like they were there. Like, instrumentally, I don't feel like anything happens in the verses, I swear. It's just like a space that exists between like the intro and the chorus, because that's just how songs are structured, right?
My major highlight is Pool. It's my favourite track on the album. And then my noteworthy highlights are Told You So, Caught in the Middle, Hard Times, And low light is No Friend.
Oh yeah, I forgot No Friend.
Do you want to include it in a highlight then?
I probably would call it a highlight, yeah, just because of the interesting atmosphere.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Score, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely on the fence between the 6 and the 7, but I can't really decide which it falls on at the moment. So yeah, I'm just gonna say it's on the fence of a high 6 and a low 7.
I wouldn't give it that high. I'd give it like a 6.
Solid
Like
6.
I'd give it like a pretty like I don't love the album.
Mhm.
I'm nowhere near loving the album, and I'm nowhere near hating the album.
Right.
A pretty middle score, like low 6, like pretty. I'd say pretty average.
Yeah, like Shak. I'm also. It's like on the cusp of being a low 7, but for now I'm pretty confident in saying it's a high 6.
Thank you for listening. If you guys have listened to After Laughter or After Laughter, what do you guys think of it? Please let us know in the comments below. And also share this to all your Paramore friends. Comment. I already said comment, but do it again. 2 comments each, everybody. Like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you for the next review. Goodbye.